Hey everyone, I'm Majiin and welcome into a very special episode of World Tour Weekly. We had the US Nationals tournament this past weekend with other national events coming up and Pro Tour Singapore on the horizon. Today we're going to go over the US Nationals tournament and meta, what we can expect in the future, and a special surprise at the end of the video. Let's get into it. US Nationals took place in Vegas this past weekend, and players got to see a first glimpse of what the meta looks like post High Seas release. Even with the bans heavily affecting Florian, it was expected that he would be one of the most represented and highest performing decks in the room. He wasn't the most impressive Earth hero at the tournament though, because Verdant's Thorn of the Rose stepped all over the competition. It's such a weird way to say that. Why was it written that way? Oh. This event also could have been the final constructed event for a couple of heroes that are close to hitting Living Legend, like Dash, Nu, and Azalea. All this is without even mentioning the whispers circling the community that Gravy Bones was doing very well in testing prior to the tournament. Now, with all that said, let's talk about how the Nationals meta played out in this week's Metagame Minute. The tournament meta is a lot of what people expected, but also not at the same time. Florian leading the pack with 62 copies was very much expected, but some of the decks coming after were a little bit harder to guess. Usually when a new format comes out, aggressive decks tend to do quite well. Newer decks aren't quite as well tuned, and a lot of the slower decks that are more reactive don't know exactly what they should be reacting to. Clearly, a lot of players agreed because 43 Syndras and 39 Azaleas were at the event. Prism was the fourth most popular hero at the tournament, which surprised me, but I expect that her strong Pro Tour London performance convinced a lot of players to bring her. What many people may not have expected was that 25 players brought Gravy Bones to the event, making him the 7th most popular deck at the tournament. Looking into Day 2 stats, we see that Florian put the most copies into Day 2, but didn't have quite as strong as conversion rate as Verdant's at 58% and Gravy Bones at 52%. Earth Heroes continued to do very well in the event, putting 4 total copies into top 8. The final bracket was pretty diverse with 2 Florian, 2 Verdants, 1 Azalea, 1 Nu, 1 Gravy Bones, and 1 Prism. Pivoting over to the Battle Hardened, their top 8 looked a little bit different, with 2 copies of Gravy Bones, 2 copies of Nu, 1 Victor, 1 Riptide, 1 Florian, and 1 Kano. These 2 top 8 suggest that Gravy Bones is looking to be a pretty strong hero, considering he just came out and he's already putting multiple copies into the final bracket. As the deck list gets more and more refined, I expect that players will consider him to be one of the best decks in the format pretty soon. Pro Tour competitors will definitely have to keep them in mind during their testing, as his ally-based strategy can pose a lot of problems for certain decks. Okay, now that we've talked a bit about the meta, let's go over how the tournament actually went with today's weekend winners. Alright, so let's start with the most obvious of our weekend winners, just to get it out of the way. Brody Spurlock. He took Gravy Bones to a first place finish in the Battle Hardened with a 9 golden tipple version that looked pretty strong. The ability to discard allies for free and keep your gold refreshed seems very, very powerful. Not to mention that tipple lets you activate your gold baited hook without worrying about having to sacrifice it at the end of the turn. Another fun standout card in the deck is Eye of Ophidia. This card makes a lot of sense considering there are a ton of cards that either draw you a new card or care what card is on top. Tipple pitching Eye of Ophidia can set you up for some really large turns. Back Alley Breakline is also a really cool card that I definitely expect to see at least 1 or 2 copies of moving forward. The ability to search it up at any time using Call to the Grave to gain an extra action point seems very strong considering the deck can put out a lot of allies and is usually gated on action points. The calling for this weekend was High Seas Limited, and Jason Rolfe won the event drafting Gravy Bones in the top 8. Gravy Bones was incredibly close to winning all 3 events on the weekend, with Jacob Shaker taking 2nd in US Nationals on the hero. Unfortunately for everyone, full-time Wizard Coper and part-time news broadcaster Majiin took down US Nationals playing Verdant's Thorn of the Rose. He's not even wearing a suit. But yes, to address the elephant in the room, I was fortunate enough to win US Nationals this past weekend. I even got this cool trophy. Since I won, I wanted to take a little bit of time out of this week's show to show you some of my favorite moments from the tournament from my perspective. I can do that because it's my show, so I can be a little bit selfish. The first moment I wanted to show you guys is from my Day 2 draft against eventual quarterfinalist Randy Davis. I'm playing a more defensive Gravy Bones list against my opponent's aggressive Manta Marlin. I was able to get my opponent to 1 life with no armor block left, so I arsenaled a nice big 7 power attack, assuming I was going to get at least 3 cards on the following turn. I sent the 7 power attack, expecting to completely gain control of the game, and what happened next was not that. Let's take a look.
Our treasure, Hunter, Ranger on the other side of the table, leaving the Pirate Necromancer with only one card and an arsenal to work with.
Such a sweet move there. Yeah, it was a zero cost arrow, and it's one of the best one. Dry Powder Shot coming in for 5 as the Rally the Coast Guard is the follow-up. This is going to ask for potentially 3 cards from Randy Davis here. Comes in for 7 with Randy all the way down to 1. Let's see, he's got the 1 block lined up. It's the Sikkim Shot, and look at that! Fire! Return fire from the hand, headed back from Majiin Bay.
And a Dry Powder Shot banished to it. That's a 1-card 9, Sam.
Getting that enormous amount of damage, plus the call in the big guns. This Dry Powder Shot is an absolute cannonball.
Oh man, it'd be really sweet if you had an on the horizon right now. Little did he know the hellfire that was about to be sent crashing down upon his boat on the other side of the table. An attack for 11 after blocking with 2 cards and no arsenal is an absolutely ridiculous return.
While it was really cool academically to see how powerful return fire could be, I was not the most stoked when it actually happened. I went from what I thought was a pretty assured victory to very dead very quickly. The next moment is a play that I'm really proud of and something that I feel like shows how important it is to be really comfortable with the deck that you're bringing to a tournament. Let's take a look.
The hook will not be destroyed. Looks like Majiin is electing to just take it, recognizing that Jacob Shaker has presented AB0.
Oh no.
not that one. Not that one. That's the wrong clip. Let's ignore that one. Here is the right clip.
Time to do the thing, says Majiin Bay. The cards are out of deck. Gain 2. Here comes the Verdance trigger.
2 life gained, 1 arcane threatened.
This would be unbelievable for Majiin Bay. Gains 2 more life.
To 21.
Another Verdance trigger on the stack.
Everbloom life. Gaining another point. Trigger on the stack. Rampant growth.
Gain a life from the
Verdance
life.
ping.
Another trigger. That one's just for 1, but the next trigger will come in for 7 points of arcane damage. Either Majiin blows New out of the water here.
With his final 2 cards, Sam.
Maybe 3 Spell Void, just the 1. 3 after the Spell Void, down to 1 goes Bird. Everbloom life resolves. Now this is so important. What card is picked by Majiin Bay here? It's going to be another Everbloom life to the bottom. Now the Cadaverous Tilling.
Coming across for 8, forcing every bit of block value Bird has available left to her. This is it. She has no insulation from the Storm Striders. With his last 2 cards, Majiin is going to put lethal on the stack with Ether Arc. What an unbelievable win condition. What a masterclass. The fist bump extended.
If you haven't seen the entirety of that semifinals game, I highly recommend you go back and watch it. It was such a close game, and I feel like the casters did such a good job capturing just how important every play was. I had to Everbloom back a blue just to have resources to pay for Storm Striders on my very last card in deck. And then for the final moment I wanted to bring up, I obviously have to show the play that won me the entire event.
Still, just resources. It still doesn't matter. Punkage can defend this Oyston. Everything coming up Majiin right now has all the time in the world with Jacob forced down this low. Warmonger's Diplomacy defends cleanly. Turn passes back to Majiin Bay. We're getting to the point where throw caution to the wind no longer matters. We can check for it. I don't know if it's going to make a difference.
It's going to save him an extra 3 life.
Here's the plume. That's pretty good. We're going to reach for the pulsing ether. There is no AB. It has to be throw caution. Arcane damage on offer, and it's the fist bump, and Majiin Bay is your U.S. national champion. Get ready for a damn good story time.
I can't even really tell you what I was feeling at that moment. I was pretty sure I was going to win, but you never know until it happens, and I just felt so elated when I got that fist bump. And being able to get my first really big win on Wizard made it feel even more special. Now, to celebrate my win, I'm going to open my gold foil prize card here on the show with you. I don't know what's in it, so I'm going to find out at the same time as all of you. Well, not technically at the same time because this is recorded, but you get what I'm saying. My script here literally just says open gold foil, react accordingly. My dream card to open is obviously gold foil Storm Striders, but there are a lot of cards that I'd be very happy to get. Okay, let's see what it is. You can tell that this is not as scripted. I hope the actual opening of the pack isn't too loud. I also hope I don't mess up. and say something dumb or trip over my words because I can't refilm this part. All right, here we go. I'm gonna pull it out, and I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm gonna see it at the same time as you. And if it's bad, I want a bunch of F's in the comments, okay? All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's really good. That is not too bad. Vestige of Soul. I feel like anytime you open an Illusionist piece, you did a really good job because nobody likes to bling out their decks like Illusionist players. I'm actually so stoked about this one. I mean, it's not Storm Striders, but it's okay, I guess. All right, now that we've opened my gold foil and we've talked about the tournament, let's talk a little bit about what we can expect in the future. Starting with Florian. He was the most represented, had the most copies in day 2, and put 2 copies into top 8. Unfortunately for Earth Runeblade lovers, I think this is going to be the last time we see so much of him for a while. Verdance and Gravy Bones both had very strong breakout performances, and I just don't think current Florian lists are built to deal with them. It could be that we see the list change to have a lot more play in these matchups, but I expect that he would be giving up some of his more stronger matchups to do that. On the flip side, I expect Verdance's meta share to rise quite a bit. It has a pretty similar matchup spread to Florian, but absolutely excels in Earth Mirrors due to her high burst damage with cards like Rampant Growth Life. But the real story for people keeping track of these events was Gravy Bones. It was 1 game away from winning the Battle Hardened, the Calling, even though it was limited, and Nationals. He's also brand new, so players haven't had enough time to actually refine the deck. I expect that by the time Singapore rolls around, players will see Gravy Bones as one of the top decks in the format, and everyone will have to come with a plan to combat him. New and Azalea are still very likely to LL before Pro Tour Singapore, but they will be legal this weekend for Calling Bologna. I'll certainly be watching this weekend's events closely to see if Gravy Bones ends up with a trajectory kind of like Syndra had post-Hunted, where she performed very well at the beginning and then kind of fell off later, or if he's really just as strong as I think he is. Speaking of Syndra, she had another very disappointing performance with only 19% of players who brought her making it into day 2. She seems, in theory, like she'll be pretty strong into Mr. Bones, but I imagine that her recent performances will scare off a lot of players from bringing her. My prediction is that we'll see Gravy Bones do pretty well in Calling Bologna, and with possible counters starting to arise the weeks after that, right in time for Singapore. I, for one, will be continuing to work on Wizards for the upcoming Pro Tour. I've been really enjoying playing Verdance and seeing some success with her, and I just really like playing the Acilio list, especially with the new shock. If you haven't shocked your opponent's Rigor Mortis to end their turn, then you haven't really lived. Alright, that's all I got for this week. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm Majiin, and I'll see you next time on World Tour Weekly.